you don't know, the FBI executed the search warrant. I guess it's not necessarily categorized as a raid, but certainly they didn't know. They just showed up in the middle of the night, right? This warrant that was served at Trump's Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, according to sources, it was a document investigation. Let me start by asking you this. Do you think that is all it is? That it's only documents that they're looking for? And allegedly, it was Donald Trump who took these documents from the White House illegally, is the claim, to Mar-a-Lago, and then got rid of some of them, kept some of them. I don't know, but that allegedly that's what he did. Do you believe that's all they were looking for?
Yeah, I do, because when they go and get a search warrant, the search warrant's got to be narrow in scope. Now, this is one that's under seal, so we can't actually look at it.
Right.
But from what people are saying, if it is just a document search warrant, then yes, it is very narrow in scope. That's what they're looking for. Now, in the course of executing a search warrant, what happens a lot is anything that's in plain view that is evidence of criminality is fair game. And so wherever a document could be stored, you can look in there. And if you happen to find something, but that's usually you're dealing with drug houses, you're going in, it's like, oh, there's illegal guns. They're just in plain view. Or I was allowed to look into these drawers. When I opened the drawer, there was evidence of child pornography. Right. Now we got you for that, even though we were looking for documents. So that's the way it works. But yeah, I think it's pretty narrow in scope.
So what I want to do is I want to read for you some of the people, the big Trump supporters out there, and I want to get your reaction to what they're saying. Because as you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, a judge has to give the okay. There has to be sufficient evidence, right? You can't just say, oh, yeah, go ahead, have a ball. A judge has to look at the evidence and make a judgment call. That's what they do on if there's enough evidence for this search warrant to be executed.
Well,
right?
Well, scale that back a little bit. The judge isn't looking at actual evidence. The judge is just going off what law enforcement is telling the judge.
Okay.
They know. In an affidavit, sworn affidavit, declared under penalty of perjury, Your Honor, this is what we've uncovered through our investigation. And do we have probable cause that there might be evidence of this crime? The crime here is taking documents that were classified. And obviously they have presented evidence to a judge that met that standard. But it's a pretty low standard to meet. And a lot of search warrants are okayed, and they weren't necessarily done the right way. We talked about this with Henry Ruggs. They're not in the best shape, form, or fashion, but a lot of times they'll still hold up if they're challenged in court later.
But Thomas, you would think, right? Garland knows this. And by the way, it's interesting because Donald Trump, this is an appointed person, the head of the FBI, I should be talking about now. This was a Republican and still is a Republican appointed by Donald Trump. I want to be clear on that. You would think that they would cross all their T's and dot their I's, and they would know that there's going to be a lot of backlash by a lot of people on the far right and the Trump supporters out there, that they would make sure that if they were going to execute a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, that they would have to have sufficient evidence and there would have to be a there. You would think, right?
Well, that's what common sense would tell you. But what officers are really doing is law enforcement is trying to go get evidence of the crime. So they need more evidence to actually make their case is what's happening. It's an investigation. So sometimes they don't have that much to go on, but they have enough to show a judge that it's likely, based on what I'm telling you, that we might find evidence of this crime there. What they probably presented was a factual scenario of documents are missing. We know that he had access to those documents. Maybe we talked to some witnesses who saw those documents there. So we are there's likely that there's a likelihood for us to believe that those documents are going to be there. Judge, let us go in.
I want to read a few. That makes sense. I want to read a few statements. Let's start with Donald Trump Jr. Also known as Biff. That's what I usually call him. So here's what Biff said. He said, quote, Biden's out of control DOJ is ripping this country apart with how they're openly targeting their political enemies. This is what you see happen in third world banana republics. What would you say to that?
That's the narrative, that it's a weaponized weaponization of the FBI. And I say this, it's not a narrative that's completely out of bounds, but because a lot of times what happens in these cases is you don't go get the search warrant and raid the place in the middle of the night. A lot of times you just try and work informally with person, especially if they've had a position of power where they had access to those documents.
But can it be possible that Trump was not cooperating?
No, that is possible. That is possible.
I think that's probably what happened here. What I believe is something was triggered. Maybe Trump was cooperating. Maybe people around him were cooperating. I believe something happened that triggered this to happen. And I believe they're speaking with people that are very close to Trump that are giving them information. That's what makes sense to me. Does that narrative make sense to you?
No, all kinds of things make sense. Also, the fact that if you think these guys not going to cooperate, then why even give them a heads up that you're looking into it? Right.
Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she says the FBI is raiding President Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. This is a rogue behavior of communist countries, not the United States of America. These are the type of things that happen in countries during civil war. The political prosecution must stop. If this was Hunter Biden, would she be saying the same thing? If this was a Democrat, would she be saying the same thing? I think not. Nick Adams, who I think is Donald Trump's official author, I don't even know what the hell that means. He said the FBI just raided the White House. This is an assault on the U.S. Constitution. Another woman with a ton of credibility, Lauren Boebert. Biden's FBI just raided the House of the most likely to be the Republican presidential nominee in 2024. By the way, that's completely irrelevant. Also went on to say, stop weaponizing federal agencies to distract from your own failed agenda. Kimberly Guilfoyle, who I believe is, if I'm not mistaken, married to Donald Trump Jr., or at least they're dating. I don't know. I think Kimberly Guilfoyle has dated everybody in Washington, but she said the FBI, the failed Biden regime, will do anything to try to distract the American people. Here's my question, and I'll say it again. Wasn't it Donald Trump that appointed this FBI director who happens to be a Republican? Why are they forgetting that? Seems like they're forgetting that to me. I mean, this was an appointee put forth by the former president of the United States, who, by the way, is not a Democrat. That gives me some reason to believe there's evidence here that this is a real case. It wouldn't have happened. Now, if it was, a far left extremist, which this person is not, then maybe I would think a little differently. But the fact that we have a staunch Republican who Donald Trump appointed leads me to believe that there's probably something there. Disagree with that?
No, I have no reason to disagree with that.
I mean, there's a few others that I could read here, but let me. Speaking of Democrats, though, I do want to get your thoughts on this. First of all, Andrew Cuomo, disgraced former mayor of New York City, just ridiculous. Not a big. I'm sorry, did I say mayor? He's the governor, right? What am I saying?
Who are we talking? Cuomo or Yang?
Cuomo.
Okay.
Start with Cuomo. The former governor. I'm sorry, I said mayor. Wrong about that. And again, disgraced. And I say disgraced because of the sexual abuse that he put towards some of the people that were working for him. It's obvious, and that's why he stepped down. Andrew Cuomo is saying, basically, and we'll get to, by the way, Andrew Yang in a moment. Cuomo is saying that this could undermine the legitimacy of the Department of Justice broader investigations into January 6th. Why? That's not the way the FBI works. Okay. If there's credible evidence, you go through with a search warrant. This has nothing to do with January 6th. Am I wrong? What is he talking about? This is the former governor of New York. Democrat, by the way, disgraced governor. What is he talking about when he makes this statement? It makes no sense to me. This has nothing to do with January 6th. Now, I guess the sentiment that he's trying to make is, well, if there's no there, and there's no evidence, and this turns into a political ploy, which, by the way, I don't think it is, then, it undermines the January 6th committee. Again, I disagree. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that there's just a narrative being put forth by the Republicans now that this is a political act and that there's no smoke there. There's not like where there's smoke, there's fire. They're saying there's no smoke. But I tend to believe, from working in law enforcement all these years, you're not just going and sending cops in and sending law enforcement in and getting search warrants approved if there's not, like you said, there's not some evidence there. Let's be real. I think it is incumbent upon our law enforcement at the highest levels to investigate any wrongdoing from the position of our highest civilian office, which is President of the United States. Mm-hmm. And look, there's people who support Trump, people who are against Trump, but there's a lot of things that were done in the White House that it's coming to light. At least there's evidence and testimony of it that we're seeing, that there was some improprieties going on that could be criminally charged, could fit within the definition of the criminal code. And I think you take it more serious. This isn't like somebody who was just on the street, who wasn't a big member of society. This is the top civilian position in charge of our military, mind you.
But how important is it that he's former president? No longer the president of the United
Well, the thing
States.
is, they're investigating what he was doing while he was in the office, right, too. Now, this is what I understand, that he's thinking about running again, and I understand not wanting to openly prosecute and investigate a president while he's sitting in the presidency and all the problems inherent in that, especially since he's in control of a lot of those organizations. But we have got to look into this kind of stuff. And if anything, the Trump administration has given us an opportunity to see if our checks and balances on this kind of thing can even work.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with the former DA here of Clark County, Thomas Moskal. Of course, we're talking about, I guess some people are calling it a raid. Am I wrong in characterizing it as a raid? They were conducting, a search warrant in the middle of the night, uninvited. So can I still characterize it as a raid or no?
Let's call it a raid. Why not? Sounds good.
Okay, fair enough.
Hashtag Trump raid.
We'll call it, hashtag Trump raid. Yeah, that's circulating on social media for sure. All right. So explain to me the process now. We don't know exactly what they took. We know that they took some boxes. We know that. They were seen taking boxes out of there. We know that there's, one side of the political spectrum that's against it, one side of the political spectrum that's for it, and then some people in the middle that, that either have a problem with it or don't. Listen, I'd love to see Trump go down because I think he's a human piece of scum. That's my personal opinion, but I don't want somebody to be convicted of a crime if they didn't do anything wrong either. I believe that they were very careful in this. That's going to be my personal opinion because the world's eyes are on them, right? I do believe that. I've heard rumors, and again, I have no idea if this is true or not, that this is not only about documents. Now, you think it is only about documents. I have no idea. You might very well be right on that. But he's being investigated for a number of other things as well. Campaign funds. There are other things that he's being still open investigations on that. So isn't it possible, though, that they could have also been looking for something else? Or you don't think that's possible at all?
I'm just saying under the terms of a search warrant, you go in, you're looking for what you're looking for, and you're allowed to look in places where that thing can be found. Now, are you in there keeping an eye open for anything else? Of course you are. That's the plain view doctrine of search warrants execution. You go in, if it's in plain view, then I can look for it. And in this case, you can even go into locked safes, locked briefcases, locked office drawers, and whatever you find, you find. You find the gun that killed some guy 20 years ago and the DNA matches. Hey, we're going on it.
So Andrew Yang, who
can I say one other thing?
Sure.
Look, they did not execute a search warrant on Trump's house and did not even apply for a search warrant on Trump's house. This thing went through so many levels of vetting of, are we getting the okay from the top down? This is not some rogue thing. A lot of people had to give the okay on this.
The fact that Donald Trump was not there, I would imagine that is probably not an accident, right? They probably did not want Donald Trump at home when this happened. Is that a fair assertion to make?
Now that you mention it, I guess you could time it and think about it like that.
It's
not like this was a crime that was time was of the essence.
So most likely they did it and they did not want him to be there because they thought that could have been just an extra deterrent from getting what they want. Do you think that's possible?
Well, not an extra deterrent, but just think about what was going on while they were doing the search warrant. I read and saw that there was just crowds of people that were ganging outside the house. Trump supporters were outside the house. Imagine if he was there. It would just be more shenanigans.
Are you afraid now, as I am, and I think some people have made statements that, the attacks on the DOJ, I mean, this is what you do for a living as an attorney, the attacks on the DOJ, that it's going to cause violence in this country and it's going to cause mayhem. Are you afraid of that? The attacks on our democracy, the attacks certainly on the FBI. There's a lot of people on the right that are attacking the DOJ and calling this a political witch hunt.
What, sparking violence?
Yeah.
In the American community, the society, like normal people, uprising and violence.
Sure.
No, I don't
I
don't get that feeling at all.
You don't think that's going to happen here?
No.
So I don't know the laws on this, and I don't understand them very well. But if the former president of the United States, is taking classified information, and I'm saying if. He takes it from the White House. He takes it to his home. I've heard rumors that he flushed some stuff down the toilet. I mean, I don't know. Is this possible jail time? How serious is this? Is this crime if it was committed by Donald Trump?
I haven't looked at the statutory penalties, but I'm sure prison time's on the table. This is a federal crime at the highest level. But in reality, is he going to be sent to prison, a former president, for having some documents at his house?
Probably not.
No, I mean, there's a lot of discretion in the criminal justice system.
But why would he do that? Why would he take documents and do that? Why would members of his security team, why would these text messages be deleted? Why is all this stuff gone? Why? What are they hiding? I believe they're hiding incriminating evidence. That's what I believe when it comes to January 6th. And I know that's a different topic, but maybe it's not. Maybe he took documents involving, we don't know. We have no idea. But the fact that it's the same theory that I have in that anybody who doesn't want to show their tax returns, they don't want to show them for a reason. There's things in there they don't want the public to see. There's things in some of these documents, if in fact, allegedly, Donald Trump did do this, there's things that he did not want people to see that could be incriminating towards him or maybe perhaps and some of the people around him.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it from that level of that he's taking documents that are pertaining to his actions.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of it more on the level of these are classified documents on a myriad of kind of topics that you just don't want out there unsecured. They're classified information. You had access to them while you were president. You don't have access to them now. They're still at your house. But yeah, I guess it could go that way. I mean, you just have to wait to let the facts bear out for themselves. Sure. That's the attorney and me.
Understood.
We're making a lot of conjecture right now of what's in that document. And were they even just going in there for documents? We don't even really know that yet. We haven't actually seen the search warrant. I mean, the DOJ is not speaking on this yet.
I want to ask you about that. That was my next question before we go to break, Thomas. There are people out there, even people on the left, that are saying Garland needs to hold a press conference and needs to explain to the American people why they went into Mar-a-Lago. Now, obviously, most situations in an open investigation, the DOJ, in most cases, even Metro Police, even locally, they're not going to comment on an open investigation, right? They're not going to do that. That's standard procedure, right? That's normal. But maybe this is an exception. So that's what I'm asking you. You have the former president's house being raided. Do you believe, in your personal opinion, that Garland needs to hold a press conference without divulging all the information, but maybe just a little bit of information to explain to the people in this country why the DOJ did what they did? Do you think that's a responsibility in a case like this that should do that?
No, absolutely not. If I was advising him.
Why?
Whenever you hold a press conference, especially as a prosecutor, you have to think about what message you're trying to get out to the public through your press conference and what are the benefits versus the harms of doing it. What kind of questions are you going to be asked? What are your answers to those questions? You're giving out a certain amount of information, not to appease the public, but you're trying to shape some kind of narrative of what's going on. And a lot of times the best thing to do, especially in the news cycle we're in, is just let it slide by. In 3 days, no one's even going to be thinking about it. But if you go out there and you make a misstep, that can really come back to haunt you. And so especially you have the perfect cover not to make a statement. It's an ongoing investigation. You'll have to see it as it plays out in the courts. End of story.
I guess we're going to find out. I'll say it this way. I do believe that there's a there. I do believe there was sufficient evidence to do what they did. I do believe they know what they're doing, but I will also say this. If there is not, and there are no charges brought down on Donald Trump, then they made a very big mistake, and this is going to hurt the DOJ. I hope that they did their due diligence. I believe they did. And there is sufficient evidence and reason and certainly a probable cause for doing what they did and enough evidence to go in there and do what they did at Mar-a-Lago yesterday. But I'll say it one more time. If there is not, and there is nothing there, oh boy, the DOJ is going to be in for some issues. I'll leave it at that. He is Thomas Moskal, former DA here of Clark County. We're going to continue this conversation on the other side.